There's that car alarm again. My neighbor is the worst. It endears me even more to the anonymous girl, or an anonym. Super excited. 12 new... Why can't I say this? Hi everyone, I'm Audrey and welcome back to Chapter and Converse. Today's video is about 12 books that are coming out in 2019 that are already on my must-read list. So for the most part, these are books by authors that I've already read before, and then of course during my research I stumbled upon a couple wild cards that I've added to the list. These are by no means all the books that are coming out next year that I want to read, and they are going to be in no particular order, so let's just get to it. So the first book is The Testaments by Margaret Atwood. Now this book is coming out in September of 2019, and it's kind of killing me that we have to wait that long for it, but at the same time we've waited over 30 years since The Handmaid's Tale came out to get a sequel to it, so I guess we can all wait like 9 or 10 more months for it. But this book is a sequel to Handmaid's Tale. There's next to nothing out there about it other than that it takes place 15 years after the final scene in the book The Handmaid's Tale. And it's not going to follow season 2 of what Hulu did with the story, which went off book. What we know is it's told from the perspective of 3 different women, but we don't know who they are or anything more than that. But Margaret Atwood basically was like, all those questions I've been getting about the inner workings of Gilead will be answered, and our world needs this now more than ever. So I'm really curious to see. I'm really excited about it. The only upside of it not coming out till September means it gives me that many more months to reread the book. So I have, this is like my well beat up copy of Handmaid's Tale from college. And I don't know if I mentioned this in another video before, but this was the first Margaret Atwood book that I read, and it was assigned in one of my classes in college. So it literally like has my markups from school. So I'm excited to be able to reread this. It's been forever. I've read it twice. But I haven't read it in the past few years, but I did watch both seasons of the Hulu show. So I'm excited to reread it. I'm excited to see what comes next. And this is by far one of my most highly anticipated reads for 2019. The next book is An Anonymous Girl by Greer, Hendricks, and Sarah Pekkanen. So they are the authors behind The Wife Between Us, and this was a huge hit in 2018 that I have not read, but it is on my Christmas wish list, so hopefully I'll be getting that in the next few weeks. An Anonymous Girl is a psychological thriller, and it focuses around a woman named Jessica who participates in a psych study in college. And these things were prevalent when I was in school, and I fully participated in one, although fortunately not what this book sounds like was not my experience. But this one is run by a mysterious Dr. Shields, who sounds really manipulative, and I don't know what this psych study involves, but basically it drives Jessica to paranoia and insanity, and it sounds like all sorts of horrible things ensue. So obviously this sounds like an amazing book. The next book is The Au Pair by Emma Rous, and this one comes out in January. So this is one of the books I stumbled upon while I was researching the other one, so wildcard number 1. And this one centers around a brother and sister who are twins. So the blurb on it is that the day that they were born, their mother threw herself off the cliffs, the au pair left, and nobody seems to really talk about it. So did the mom commit suicide? Was it murder? What else was going on that day? So fast forward to many years later, and the twins are grown up, their father passes away, and while the daughter is going through his things, she stumbles upon a photograph taken the morning of their birth, and it is a picture of the father, the mother, their young son, and one of the twins. So which twin is it? Where did the other one come from? What all happened that day? That's the mystery. So it sounds really intriguing. I don't know anything about this author, but I'm very excited. It just sounds like a really good thriller and a really good mystery, so I will definitely be checking that one out. The next book is The Last Houseguest by Miranda. So I read All the Missing Girls probably like 2 years ago when it came out, and I really liked it. And then I have Megan Miranda's second book, The Perfect Stranger, I think that's the right title, on my shelf to be read. So I'm excited to read that one. And of course, here's a third one that's coming out. And this one takes place in Maine, where you have all the locals who are there year round. And then you have the sort of rich, wealthy folks and their families who come for the summers and have the big houses. And over the course of about 10 years of this one family coming to visit, the daughter of that family, Sadie, winds up developing a friendship with one of the local girls, Avery. And then, sure enough, Sadie is found dead, and it's a question of, was it suicide, was it murder, what happened, and unclear as to why, but Sadie's brother seems to think that Avery had something to do with it, so Avery is trying to clear her name and find out what happened. Kind of vague on the details, which is fine because it's a thriller, so it's supposed to be vague on the details, but I want to say that one comes out like in May, and I'm excited to read it. It sounds really good. The next book is Before She Knew Him by Peter Swanson, and this one comes out in March. So I had talked about in my November Rewind that I read The Kind Worth Killing by Peter Swanson, which was my first book by him, and I'm of course now completely obsessed. So I am happy to gobble up anything that this man writes. All I know about this one is suburban housewife thinks her neighbor is a murderer. That's kind of all I could find out about it, but that's cool. I'm down. No questions asked. I'm buying this one. Next up is Blood Oath by Linda Fairstein, and this comes out in January. And this is her 20th book in the Alexandra Cooper series. Now, Alex Cooper is a DA in the sex crimes unit in New York, and these books always have kind of a main frontline crime. There's always a secondary crime, and then what Linda Fairstein does in all of her books is she takes a part of the city or like a historical location in the city, whether it's Grand Central or Gracie Mansion or the New York Public Library or Roosevelt Island, and she will kind of go into the history of that and interweave that into the story. So you get to learn about something in New York while you're reading a mystery, while there's a secondary crime, while these people are sort of living their lives and having their relationships with one another. So I thoroughly enjoy these books. Linda Fairstein was a DA in the sex crimes unit for like 30 years, and she is actually the first few seasons of Law and Order. Stephanie March's character was actually based on Linda Fairstein, kind of loosely. But the stories are really interesting. There's obviously her personal real life experience that's woven into this. And I just think the books are so well written and so interesting. So I am excited for number 20 in this series. My next book is The Paris Diversion by Chris Pavone. And this one comes out in May. Now, this is his fourth book, and while it's not a series that you have to read in order, he does have some of his characters show up in the different books, whether they're primary or secondary. And in this book, one of his primary characters from his first book, The Expats, is back again, and she is a bit front and center in this book as well, along with her husband and her family. And what Chris Pavone does in his books is he kind of has multiple things going on at the same time and multiple stories, and you're not quite sure how they connect, but somehow he brings together things that you can't even think that he could bring together. And his original book, The Expats, it's a lot of sort of espionage and action and real thriller. His stories are just so great. I don't even know, I'm not doing it any justice at all. He is a great writer. He weaves amazing stories, and it is just page-turning, just amazing stuff. If you have not heard of him, if you have not picked up his books, I absolutely recommend them because they are all great. And this, to me, was a book I didn't even know was coming out next year. I didn't realize he had a new book coming out, but I was so excited when I saw it. So I will definitely be reading this one as soon as it comes out. The next book is another one of my wild cards, and it's The Night Olivia Fell by Christina McDonald. So I don't know anything about this author. This is another one that I just sort of stumbled upon. And what the book is about is Olivia falls off a bridge, and she winds up being in the hospital. She's brain dead, but she's pregnant, so she has to be kept alive in order to keep her baby alive. And what the story centers around is her mother comes and is trying to find out what happened. And it's a question of, did Olivia jump? Was Olivia pushed? Was there something more sinister going on? And as she's trying to figure out what happened to her daughter, it is it is secrets and it is things that she didn't know about her daughter coming out, and her mom is really just trying to figure out what happened to her that night. The next book is Mrs. Everything by Jennifer Weiner, and this comes out in June of 2019. And this follows two sisters from the 1950s until today, and it's about them trying to find their place in the world and kind of the struggles they go through and trying to figure out where they fit in, and obviously about their relationship. So I'm really excited to read this. She's such a good writer. She's so funny, but she also has stories that are just warm, and whether it's about family or friendships, or, you know, some of her earlier books, it was sort of the single woman, and Good in Bed was huge when it first came out, and it was just so different at the time. But it kind of, it's shown the struggles between whether it's sisters or friends or boyfriends or husbands or relationships or being a new mom. Her book, Goodnight Nobody, which is probably my favorite of all of her books, is this woman moves to the suburbs, you know, has kids with her husband, and she's trying to figure out where she fits in there and have the role of the mom, and she's not like all the typical moms in the area. And it's kind of like Big Little Lies-ish type of a thing, because somebody dies and she's kind of investigating that murder, and it's murder mystery, but there's also a ton of humor to it. So if you haven't read Jennifer Weiner, I absolutely recommend her books. She also wrote a memoir, which I haven't read yet, but own. So this is on my list for next year. And not to go off topic, but one of my goals for next year is to read at least one nonfiction book a month, because I have a bunch of nonfiction, and I have a bunch of nonfiction on my list of things I want to read, but I'm terrible at actually reading it. So anyway, I will be reading this. But if you have seen Jennifer Weiner at an author reading or any interviews of hers, or actually follow her on Twitter, she's so funny. She's just amazing. So I'm just love her books. So excited she has something new coming out, and it's a perfect excuse to get back into her again. Next up is The Better Sister by Alafair Burke, and this one comes out in April. And this is another domestic thriller by her, and this one is about two sisters, so I seem to be having like a sister-sister theme happening here. And one of the sisters' husbands dies, and he is the ex of the other sister. That's all I've seen written up on it. Again, I've said this like 100 times before, even though I've only done like 5 videos, but like, that's enough for me. I'm in. I love Alafair Burke. So I have read all of her books. She started out with a series with a prosecutor, then she had a series with someone, NYPD detective, and then she kind of got into domestic thrillers. So I've read all of her books. I think she's great. I love her stories. They go really quick. They're good mysteries. One of the things I'm going to do is start to do some author spotlights of authors that I really love, and I think Alafair Burke might be the first one that I do. So, like I said, she has 2 series, so if you're ever going to dip into those, read them in order. It's a series. But then her last few books have been more of a domestic thriller, and you can pick any of those up in any order, but kind of like Chris Pavone, if you haven't read Alafair Burke, you should. I think she's great, and I'm really excited for this book. The next book is my last wild card, and it's She Lies in Wait by Gytha Lodge. I believe that's how you say her name, and this comes out in January. So this is a debut novel, but she is a playwright, and she's written for video games, so not her first rodeo writing, but it is her first novel. And this book is about 6 friends who go camping, and this is in 1983, and a girl named Aurora goes camping with them. And fast forward 30 years, and Aurora's body is found in those woods where they went camping. And now it is the friends sort of confronting the fact that one of them is a killer. So that's kind of all I know about that one. But it's kind of giving me like Riley Sager vibes. I love this kind of happened a long time ago, you and all your besties, and all of a sudden you're looking at your friends like, who are you? Do we know each other at all? What the hell happened in the woods that night? I'm in. And the last book is The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. And this one is coming out in August. And literally, I was looking for details on this, and it's basically like, there are no other details other than she has a book coming out in August. So, I don't know what it's going to be about. I really enjoy Ruth Ware's books. I will say In a Dark, Dark Wood was my favorite. I loved most of The Woman in Cabin 10, but was not happy with the ending. I felt like it really kind of went rogue, and what started out as like this great Agatha Christie-ish mystery of everyone trapped on the boat together and someone's a murderer. I didn't love the turn that one took. I did enjoy The Lying Game. I thought that was well done. I like kind of anything that has elements of high schoolish in it. I had talked about my PLL Gossip Girl kind of obsession in a previous video, so I liked that it had the girls when they were in school and had the girls in present day. So I was down for that. And I really liked The Death of Mrs. Westaway. I thought it was a great story. It had some good twists in it. I liked the atmosphere of it, all of it. I got to see Ruth Ware during her author tour for The Death of Mrs. Westaway, and it was so interesting to hear about kind of her writing process and how she got to that story and how she gets her ideas and how she writes. And I've talked about this in a previous video. I'm a writer as well, and if I have the opportunity to see an author, whether it's at, you know, a writing conference or during a tour or some kind of interview, it can endear me even more to their work and endear me even more to their books. And Ruth Ware is absolutely one of those people. So I am really excited to hear more about this book, and will be for sure reading it when it comes out in the summer. And those are my 12 books coming out in 2019 that I'm excited to read. So I would love to hear if there's anything on that list that you guys are excited to read, if I've grossly missed and overlooked a book that you think should be on my list that I have to be reading, and anything else that you're excited about, whether it's an author or a specific book. Leave it in the comments, because obviously 12 books doesn't even begin to be enough books that I need to be reading that are coming out next year. So thank you guys for stopping by. Thanks for watching and spending some time here. If you liked the video, definitely give it a thumbs up. If you are interested in hanging out some more, hit the subscribe button, and I will see you next time. Bye.